champions. I'm Amy Morgan, the feature writer for the Marriage Initiative, and I'm delighted to introduce you to Troy and Kathleen Billings. This Catholic couple are national marriage speakers and co-founders of Building Amazing Marriages, a vibrant parish-based marriage ministry. They also co-author the worldwide top-selling Catholic marriage book, Simply Love, Catholic Marriage Day by Day, published by Our Sunday Visitor. They're former contributors to the For Your Marriage section of the USCCB website. Troy is a multilingual, corporate, global business executive, and Kathleen is a former contributor to Catholic Mom and Wine, Women in the New Evangelization. She's also a contributing author to Amazing Grace for Mothers and Called by Name, 365 Daily Devotions for Catholic Women. Troy and Kathleen, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us, Amy. Good to be here.
Oh, I should also mention you wrote a blog called Two to Tango, which has a special meaning to you. Could you share the story of why that's special and how you all got started with that?
Yeah, so we met in college. Troy attended the University of Notre Dame. I was at St. Mary's right across the street. We actually were paired up for a dance class in college. A Christmas magical dinner. And so that's when we first met. Our relationship kind of grew from there. We were part of a rosary prayer group that him and his roommate and myself started back in college. That's actually still going today at Notre Dame and St. Mary's, like 30 years later, which is pretty cool. But we initially met dancing and loved to dance together. Troy was a convert to Catholicism in college, and I was his sponsor when he was brought into the church. So that was really beautiful and a special bond. But God, allowed us to kind of go our separate ways. I actually transferred to another college my last 2 years, the Franciscan University of Steubenville in Ohio. And we kind of lost contact because this was before cell phones and social media and all that stuff. Right. Yes, we kept in touch a little bit, here and there with letters, but beyond that, not much contact. And we actually both ended up marrying other people, and we both were living very parallel lives in our first marriages, unbeknownst to both of us because we had lost contact at this point. But both of us had spouses that had serious challenges and mental health issues, and after a lot of prayer and counseling and really seeking God's will for both of us, we both felt like the Lord, was not the healthy thing to stay in and move forward. So about that time, we reconnected through, I used to always send out, people used to send little Christmas newsletters, once a year.
They've gotten smaller and smaller, but I still.
Yes. So I used to always do that. So he was on my list of people that I sent it to. So he got one that Christmas and decided to kind of call out of the blue. And he thought I was happily married and vice versa. And we kind of had a conversation, just kind of updating each other on each other's lives. It was probably maybe February or March of that following year after he got the newsletter. And we realized, we both had gone through some really painful, challenging times, and we're in a, season of healing, and both of us seeking our annulments. And so it became a good support system at first. He was in Minnesota. I was in Peoria, Illinois at the time. And then we decided to meet up, and we had our annulments. We kind of slowly started dating again, and we're married about 2 years later. So that's, and then eventually, we ended up starting this blog with the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops For Your Marriage website. We were asked to do a monthly blog for them, and we called it Two to Tango since we met dancing, and we still love to dance. So that's kind of the quick version.
I love that. And one of the things that you guys really felt would be foundational as you started your life on the right foot, dancing analogy there, together, was just really that praying the rosary, and then you had your adoration hour date. So describe some of those practices, because I think that would be really helpful for our marriage champions, because these are practices that you continue to this day that have continued to strengthen your marriage.
Sure. So, I think there's nothing more beautiful than both an adoration evening and also praying the rosary. So I'll kind of start first with adoration night. So when we first got married, and we've always both loved ministry together, but we made a good decision. We said, let's give it, a good 6 months or so into the early part of our marriage. And let's not really commit to anything other than the fact that once a week, we wanted to commit to a holy night of adoration with Jesus. And back in the day when our children were really young, We called it Date Night with Jesus.
Yeah.
We still kind of do, but we would get a babysitter. I mean, we treated it so meticulously that we got a babysitter. We went out and we'd spend an hour in front of the Adoration Chapel just praying together, giving our time to the Lord. And 19 years later, I'm proud to say that we still do that very faithfully to this day as we watch our kids grow up. And the benefits have been, overwhelmingly amazing. I mean, when you go and you can give your most deepest concerns or just whatever's on your heart to God, he always is speaking to us in prayer. Okay, so that's the first thing I'll say. And then secondly, with the rosary, there's no greater spiritual weapon in this world of spiritual warfare where every single day we're battling, good versus evil. And especially in our families where I'm the father and the husband, I represent the head of the family. It is so critically important that we pray together. And the rosary is a nice vehicle or a method of protection through Our Lady. And we also offer it through St. Michael the Archangel to protect us from external and internal challenges and forces. So I'll let Kathleen kind of elaborate further. Really, in a nutshell, those are the two things that we really try to have as the foundation and the bedrock of our marriage and our family.
Yeah.
And so for those who are not Catholic, adoration, we believe Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist. And so adoration is a practice that developed early in the church of spending time in front of the Blessed Sacrament, which is Jesus in the Eucharist, and it's enclosed in what's called a monstrance. And many churches around the world have what's called perpetual adoration. Not every parish, because you have to have enough people to keep it going, because the idea is never to have Jesus be alone. So somebody is there every hour, 24/7, 365 days a year. So we signed up to do, 1 hour a week. Obviously, we we spend more time in prayer outside of that, but specifically in front of the Blessed Sacrament, we committed to that 1 hour a week. And that certainly has produced a lot of spiritual fruit in our marriage. And then the rosary is just a form of prayer that reflects on the life of Jesus. And it's not a prayer to Our Lady or to the saints. It's just a way to enter into the life of Christ by praying certain prayers over and over again, really reflecting on the life of Christ. And it has become really, I know for our family, a huge weapon against evil. We just really notice a big difference when we take that time to pray together. The rosary, it has produced just beautiful fruit in our marriage and has kept us, focused and on the right track, so.
I love that. Well, and I love that you explained what the Adoration Chapel was and the timing of that, because Troy, you're an international businessman and you travel, and even, throughout your marriage, but you kept this practice even when you were not on the same continent. Could you explain that? That was really neat to me.
Sure. Yeah. No, I do travel quite a bit for business, domestically and internationally. And even when I travel, I always seek out where there's, an adoration chapel. And, not all churches offer it 24/7, but wherever I'm at, I'm always looking for one. And when I do find one, I want to make it a point to go in adoration. And so some specific examples, back in 2019, I traveled very extensively to Costa Rica and found a church in San Jose, the capital. Where, because I was going so frequently, I got to know all the church's schedules. And, Kathleen and I would be able to map up actually to the hour, the evening and the time slot. And so even if the time zone was a little different, we could just map it. And she would go to adoration in Chicago at the time. And then I would be in Costa Rica. And that's just one of many examples. But again, nothing more beautiful, more powerful than to know that together you're united in front of Christ praying, regardless of the geography.
I love that. I just thought that was so neat. In Costa Rica, I think, were they on the same time?
I think it's an hour difference, I believe, from Chicago. Or actually, it might be 2 hours even, because now I'm in the East time zone. Yeah, it's 2 hours from Chicago.
But not bad. It worked.
Yes.
That's wonderful. So fast forward just a little bit. I'm glad that you brought up Chicago, because that's where you were living, just in Rockford, right? The Diocese of Rockford.
Diocese of Rockford. Yes.
St. Charles, right?
In
Yeah.
St. Charles, which
Yeah.
is a western suburb of Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had relatives that have lived in both Rockford and St. Charles, so on my
Okay.
husband's side.
Okay.
So that's why that sticks with me. But there, you got involved. The Gramers got you involved in a marriage ministry there. So let's talk about building amazing marriages, because that's a program that's still Catholic churches, parishes are still doing that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, so our previous parish is. So it didn't really branch out too much from our previous parish, but we've implemented some of the ideas at a parish here locally also and helped them kind of get it up and going. But yeah, so Don and Lori have been huge mentors in our life, and they were working for the Rockford Diocese at the time, directors of marriage and family life. And they're incredible marriage champions, as you probably know. Like, they've just been doing this their whole life, and they're incredible people that have touched a lot of lives, including ours. So early in our marriage, they were very instrumental in kind of encouraging us to use what God had allowed us to go through, for God's glory. And they asked us to start a marriage ministry program at our parish, and more or less just to kind of do something. They didn't really have any kind of guidelines or so we formed a team of other couples, and it kind of organically grew over time. But basically, we met once a month, and we had a date night at our parish. We used kind of different programs over the years, but kind of eventually developed our own program in a sense. We used a little bit of Greg and Julie Alexander's program called Covenant of Love. Yeah. And I think we started with that. There was something called 6 Dates for Catholic Couples. I'm not sure if I'm quoting that exactly right, but
I know that one too. Yeah.
Okay, so we used that, but as opposed to like leaving the church, we did it at the church. So once a month on a Friday night, we met at the church from I think it was 6 to 9, if I remember. We had a team of 5 couples, and we had card tables for each of the couples. So it was kind of a romantic dinner. I think we charged like $25, $30 or something like that. We provided dinner. We had a talk of some sort related to marriage, whether it was finances or communications or in-laws or just things that couples have to deal with in marriage. And so it was 20 minutes, maybe. Sometimes we'd bring in speakers. Once in a while, we'd do a video, and then we'd have time for discussion and fellowship at the end. And then we had a few more fun activities throughout the year. During January, I think we did a sports theme and talked about how you have to go the long haul in marriage and take time out and all those sport analogies.
Yeah. So whenever the Super Bowl was around, we always themed it around that. We talked about, handoffs, and, we even use analogies like, don't go off sides with your spouse, things like that. So we kind of made that fun. In the summer, we always had an off-site luau. And then we also did a wine and cheese tasting in August.
Oh, that's fun.
It was always a hit.
Yeah.
And then we had in the fall, we had a barn dance as well. So we did some fun activities off campus as well.
Oh, and a Valentine's dance, right?
And
Where you resurrect your tango skills. And
That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that. And you did that, and eventually your kids, kind of, helped set up and were part of it. It's kind of a family ministry.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and it was great and wonderful. And then, like so many great and wonderful ministries, the pandemic changed some things. So tell us the rest of the story.
Yeah, so we had been praying about moving south for a while and got really serious about it maybe 6 months before the pandemic hit. And it was clear that God was leading us to South Carolina just after a lot of prayer. And that's kind of a story in and of itself. But it was a decision that we felt like, this is where God wants us, but we weren't really sure how the details were all going to work out. And we're both planners and, spreadsheets and all this kind of, right, But I remember we met that January, because we always in January meet and do a planning night for our family and kind of write everything out and pray over it and all that. And when we met that January, we're like, we feel like this is the year the Lord wants us to move, but we're not really sure how logistically it's all going to pan out. We had a home to sell. He was traveling a lot. There was stuff that had to be fixed, just all the practical aspects of moving. Plus, we had been, in the same home since we married and in the same area, and we had wonderful community and family and all that, right? So when COVID hit, we were like, you know what?
This is a sign.
Yes. So we're like, let's just keep walking through the doors as God opens them. Let's get things ready. And if the Lord wants it, then he'll make it happen, And so I remember we put our house on the market at a very, it was maybe 2 months into COVID, and houses were not selling in Chicago prior to COVID. It was obviously even worse with COVID, but our home I remember it was our anniversary. It was our wedding anniversary. We got 10 offers on our wedding anniversary, and 2 of them were over asking price. So we're like, okay, God, I think this is what you want, you know?
Wow.
And that was just one, you know, kind of related to our marriage sign, like, okay, this is what the Lord wants. It was a huge leap of faith to move, especially in the midst of such uncertainty in the world, right? You know, and is he still gonna have his job? And, you know, all these kinds of things, right? You know, like you just didn't, everything was uncertain, right? But truly the Lord has blessed it. And we arranged for people to take over the ministry, you know, some people on the team, but sadly it fizzled just because Chicago was much more, you know, it took a lot longer for them to open things up and get ministries going. And by the time that happened, without the initial leaders in place, like, you know, the couples that did it were phenomenal, great people. But by the time, you know, it came around, they kind of got involved in other things. And so actually the ministry is just now starting back up at the parish in like the last 6 months, which is beautiful to hear. So that's good. Yeah. So then we moved to South Carolina, and the Lord has clearly blessed it. And definitely it was his will.
And just to kind of pick that up. So we moved to South Carolina in July of 2020. We knew really just a very small handful of people. And, you know, the first thing we want to do is we want to get to know people. And so, and in South Carolina, even though it was the pandemic, it definitely was much more open than it was up north. And so, you know, people were more willing to meet. And so we took our small group of people and we said, you know what, let's just have like a small rosary at our house. And we did not think anything more of it than like, okay, let's just pray together with the few people that we know. And maybe that first rosary, which I want to say was September of 2020, we had maybe 10 to 15 people tops. Well, it was a success. People liked it. So they said, you know what, can we do it again? And do you mind if we invite some friends? And we said, sure. Well, little by little, it's continued to grow, and all glory to God. Since 2020, you know, we now average 250 to 300 people a month that we draw from all of the Catholic parishes in the Greenville-Spartanburg area, even from as far north as southern North Carolina, up in Tryon and right on the border there. Will often come down. Charlotte will come down to our home, and, you know, we have a 5-acre homestead. And, you know, it's just been a beautiful, it's blossomed into a beautiful ministry, completely organic. Is sincerely not planned, but we absolutely are always open to God's will. And by his glory, he gave us that opportunity. And we're so thankful to have this ministry and to all the good people that come every month.
Well, explain to our marriage champions how you can host 250 people. Obviously, not just in your house.
Yes.
So explain about your property and how that all works.
So I'll let Kathleen share it, but I'm going to say one thing. My wife is the most amazing hostess. So I'm going to say that, okay? I love to host as well, but she's the queen hostess. I'll let you take it.
And he's the king. No, you know, it's amazing because the property we purchased, it really wasn't our first choice. And we knew we wanted to do ministry at our home. We knew we wanted to use our home for God's glory, but we really weren't sure how that was going to look. You know, like, were we going to continue to do marriage ministry at the parish level and then do something family ministry at our home? Certainly we still do a lot of marriage ministry, like on the national level, and, you know, we speak and do a lot with that, but we weren't really sure what God wanted, you know, to use our property for. And so he led us to this property that's very centrally located. It's 5 open acres, very, as I said, centrally located to a lot of people. And it's very hard to find land here that's open. A lot of it is, you know, covered in trees and whatnot. So I say that because the layout is like absolutely perfect for hosting a lot of people and having parking and all the logistical things that go into hosting that many people at your home. So we have a big outbuilding that we kind of turned into a ministry center. And because it grew organically, we like bought some tables and chairs off of Facebook Marketplace, and then we bought more, and then we bought rolling tables for the food and, you know, that kind of thing. Eventually we put in bathrooms last year because we didn't have bathrooms. So people were just coming in our home to use the bathroom, which was fine. But
that's a lot of people for.
It is a lot. Definitely was having to get
potties like at a race.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. So, you know, we put up like a gaga pit for the kids, and we have a play set and just different things. You know, we'd set bags, fun things for the teens, and it was just beautiful. You know, I mean, how it just kind of all naturally came together. We have a huge open area in the front of our property that we use for parking, and it holds a good 65 cars or something we've counted. So that allots for a lot of, people to be able to come. And it's a potluck. So we just provide like plates, napkins, silverware, water, lemonade, and everyone else brings food. And I'm always a little like, are we gonna have enough food? But it always seems to work out, so we always usually have plenty. So.
Yeah. And I'll share one more like little fact, talking about being open to God's will and also watching his hand unfold. So we are also blessed to have a small vineyard, and we both love viniculture and winemaking, etc. Well, if you were to see our home, we have a long driveway that kind of splits the middle of our front yard, and our front yard's probably 2.5 acres as an estimate. Well, we put the vineyard on one side, and when we were putting in the trellis system, we actually kind of talked to ourselves, and we're like, you know what? We love it because we love gardening. We're like, why don't we do the other side? And both of us just said, let's leave that open. We don't know, but let's just leave that other side open and call it a gut check. I say it was God talking to us, but had we closed that off, we probably would not have had room for parking. But now because we left it open, that is where everybody parks, and it's really just the perfect spot. So it's a beautiful little
This is a little detail,
but holding his plan,
Yeah.
I love that. And too, that you took all the things you learned at your Building Amazing Marriages, and then you translated them to incorporate the families. And you have some theme nights. You just had, you have 4th of July party, barn dance, all those fun things to bring community. Well, while you were doing that, I love that you also talked about nationally speaking. You do some national speaking, Kathleen, you to women's groups, and you guys together for marriage.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll back up really quick. In addition to the, something fell. Sorry, I don't know what that was. In addition to the monthly rosary, we actually are now starting to incorporate Saturday night for couples. So we're planning to do like 3 or 4 of those a year. And we've done 2 already. And that was beautiful, where we just have the couples come and we bring in kind of like what we did with BAM, but bring in a speaker. We also hired a musician to come play live music so we could have some dancing for the couples. It was candlelight. It was a lot nicer. We could actually light candles because we didn't have little kids running around, We took it up a notch. We used real tablecloths instead of plastic. So it was a beautiful evening for couples. So we're also doing that now at our home. But as far as speaking, so we've been speaking nationally probably for the last 10 years, around the country. I think we've spoken in maybe 14 different states. And so just really whenever people invite us, we kind of discern if we're able to do it, and if it's something we feel like the Lord wants us to do. And so the few that we have coming up is we are doing, I think you might have mentioned, we will be guest speakers on what's called the Good News Marriage Cruise in February of 2026. And that's really exciting because there's going to be a lot of phenomenal marriage speakers on that cruise, and it's all for marriage. So it's like a big conference on a boat with all these great speakers and
cruise.
So that's beautiful. The company that hosts that, this is their, believe 3rd year doing it. It will be our 1st year as speakers on the cruise, but the 1st year I think they rented out like half the boat, or 1/4 of it. Maybe last year was like half of it. They took a leap of faith for 2026 and like rent,
the whole thing.
The entire boat is sold out.
And it sold out about, it sold out
wonderful.
more than a year ahead of time. So it obviously shows there's a need and people want this and are longing for this, which is beautiful. It's so beautiful. So that is one we're super excited about. There is the National Catholic Conference of Family Life Ministers in October, which is a big national conference somewhere around the country. This year it's in Louisville, Kentucky.
My birth home.
Yes. Yeah. So that brings in a lot of the Catholic family life ministers from all over the different dioceses in the U.S. together in one spot once a year to learn and grow and network. And so we will be keynote speakers for that in October. We'll also be doing a marriage retreat at Catholic Family Land, which is a huge ministry in Bloomingdale, Ohio, in September. So those are the few things we have on the horizon coming up. So
that is so wonderful. And now we would be remiss if we did not talk about the book that you co-authored, that you worked together. Your Simply Love, Catholic Marriage Day by Day. So tell us the story. That came out in 2023, correct? Just recently.
Yeah. So it was launched in February of 2023. I think I referenced earlier how in January every year we meet to go over our goals. We actually go to adoration that evening and kind of pray about what the Lord wants us to do that year. And then we meet, afterwards at a restaurant and talk about it. And so I don't know, maybe it was like 7 years ago or something.
It was like 5 years before 2023. So let's do the math, 2018.
Yeah. So 7 years ago.
Yeah. So at any rate, that evening in prayer, I felt like the Lord was calling us to write a daily devotional for Catholic couples. And afterwards, I shared the idea with him. I kind of Googled on my phone, like, is there anything like this out there, as a resource? And there's definitely daily devotionals for Christian couples. And there was a handful of like 60-day devotionals for Catholic couples. But there was nothing that was a 365 daily devotional, specifically like Catholic in nature. Obviously, like a lot of the concepts overlap all of Christianity, right? But that just had some more specific Catholic focus. So we had the opportunity to present it to our Sunday Visitor, the largest English-speaking Catholic publisher in the world. And they were very excited to be able to offer us a contract, and we were thrilled. And so we spent the next year writing the book. We had a little bit written that we, presented to them, but we wrote the rest of it. When we were getting ready to present it, it was about 100,000 words, unedited at that point, that we were ready to present to them. But the night
100,000 words.
Yes.
What that
Yes.
means, because I know what's coming next, and I want our marriage champions to feel the weight of 100,000 words.
It's a lot. It's like the average of 2 books, really, because an average book is about 50,000 words. So, it was a lot. But so we went to upload the file on my computer to send off to our Sunday Visitor. Super exciting. And my computer just like crashed. I'll let you kind of explain.
Yeah. So, we went to, so we had the document written, we went to send it. And when we sent it, we got the blue screen of death, so our laptop crashed.
Thank God that has never happened to me, but I think everyone has that, like that, feeling.
It was a very, very shocking moment, believe me.
Yeah.
So the computer crashed. We rebooted it. We saw what's called a ghost file image. So it looked like an icon on the desktop, but behind it, there was no data. So the book was completely gone off of our hard drive. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that we had also uploaded our same book in the cloud and hosted it on a third-party server. And traditionally, on a very safe, reputable site, you would expect it to be fine.
Yes.
But we went to go retrieve it, and it also was gone from that server. And so we literally lost the entire book. And I'll just kind of quickly, very fast explain. We had a really dear friend who used to work for the FBI forensic science, computer science, gave him the laptop. He did some back-end work and discovered that a virus had been maliciously written to specifically attack and delete that file from our local drive. And then, ironically, discovered a second virus that had been specifically targeting the book in the cloud, such that we literally lost both. We had just a handful of our daily reflections on a flash drive, but for really all intents practical purposes, we were forced to start again from scratch, and absolutely upped our spiritual warfare tactics, and hence the rosary, everybody.
Yeah. Well, lots of prayer.
Lots of prayer.
Not
I'm
that
glad you mentioned that, because that's really the only explanation. And that also truly does, though, show the value of this book when, somebody and something were working so hard to make sure it didn't get out.
Yes.
Then that tells you how valuable it really is, and what it's going to do, and what it has been doing for couples who choose to use it. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's in it?
Yeah, so it starts, each day starts with a quote from either scripture or a saint, and then there's a little reflection based on that quote. And then that is followed by a prayer for the couple to pray together. And that is the part of the book that I think we're both most grateful for, because praying together, for some couples, it comes very naturally. Most couples, it's kind of awkward and they're not quite sure how to do it. So it gives couples an opportunity to pray for specific things in their marriage, like, Lord, help us to communicate better, or Lord, help us to love one another when it's difficult to love, or whatever, right? Just very specific prayers for the married couple to pray together about things in their marriage. And so it kind of all goes together, from, the quote to the reflection to the prayer about it all. And so that there's 365 of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing too, is we purposely wrote it to be short, right? To make it easy for the busy couple to just kind of go through one single day. I mean, a lot of people tell us they can, read the one daily reflection, like 5 minutes, and then pray. So it really brings them together. And then the other thing that we were very strategic on was, rather than starting with, say, January 1st and ending December 31st, we just started day 1, day 365. So you can literally pick the book at any point in the year and just start reading.
Yeah, I love that.
Skip a few days, hey,
it's okay.
Which is going to happen, right? That's life, So, and we share a lot of personal stories and experiences in there to hopefully help couples realize they're not alone, and we're all in this together. God called us to write this book, but we're not marriage counselors. We do have a lot of background. Like my background is in theology. But it's been a lot of life experience of just striving to live what the Lord calls us to in marriage, and how that's, panned out in our marriage, and things that we've learned along the way to help us grow and be stronger and stay faithful to the sacrament of marriage. So, yeah.
Well, I love it. And again, that's a testament to how valuable this book is, how hard it was to get it to be out, and how much opposition you had to overcome. Well, Kathleen and Troy, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you so much for having us, and for all you do. This is
thank you. You have a beautiful ministry.
Well, it is my pleasure to be part of it. Marriage Champions, if you'd like to find out more about the Billings and their ministry, you can always reach us at marriageinitiative.org or marriageresources.org.